Om det är någon som inte förstår engelska så finns det översättning från engelska till svenska där ute. Någon som har problem? Ingen?
So, thank you all for coming today to the regular Sunday feast here in the Hare Krishna Center in Stockholm. This afternoon, I'd like to read the verse and purport from the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the 11th canto. So, this is a very nice verse, and there's a very nice story that goes with it, which I'd like to tell, and also a lesson. So the verse reads, Mano gunan vaishjite baliyas sutashcha karmani lilakshanani shuklani krishnani atalohitani tevya savarna shattayo bhavanti. And this means the powerful mind actuates the functions of the material modes from which evolve the different kinds of material activities in the modes of goodness, ignorance, and passion. From the activities in each of these modes develop the corresponding statuses of life. So the purport reads, in the mode of goodness, one considers oneself to be saintly or wise person. In the mode of passion, one struggles for material success, and in the mode of ignorance, one becomes cruel, lazy, and sinful. By the combination of these material modes, one identifies oneself as a demigod, as a king, a rich capitalist, a wise scholar, etc. These conceptions are material designations generated from the modes of nature, and they arrange themselves according to the tendency of the powerful mind to enjoy temporary sense gratification. The word baliyas in this verse, meaning very strong, indicates that the material mind becomes insensitive to intelligent advice. Even if we are informed that we are committing many sins and offenses in order to earn money, we may still think that money should be acquired at all costs, since without it one can neither perform religious ceremonies nor gratify the senses with beautiful women, mansions, and vehicles. Once the money is achieved, one suffers further problems. But the stubborn mind will never heed good advice in this regard. One must therefore give up mental concoction and control the mind in Krishna consciousness, as exemplified here by the Brahmana from Avanti. So this verse is spoken by, as it is mentioned at the end of the purport, a Brahmin from a city called Avanti. Now this Brahmin had accumulated a lot of money. He was a family man, so he had wife and children and other relatives. But he never spent this money on them. He was simply a miser. You might think, well, if he was a Brahmin, because a Brahmin means a priest in the Vedic culture, so perhaps he was using his money for religious observances, sacrifices, and so on. No. He didn't use it for that either, neither religious nor material purpose. He simply guarded his money like a yaksha. This is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Yaksha means a kind of ghost. In the olden times, when people were very rich and greedy, they would sometimes bury their money in the ground, and they would bury also a child with the money, a baby. Get a baby from somewhere and bury it with the money. Of course, the baby would die, being buried underground, but the ghost would remain. So anyone who came later to try and dig up the treasure would have trouble from this ghost. Also, it is said that the Egyptians, when they built their pyramids and hid the treasure of the king, they had some kind of curse that they put there. In old King Tut's pyramid. Somewhere I heard that the British archaeologist who broke in there they suffered great problems as a result. Anyway, so just like one of these yakshas, just like one of these ghosts who is guarding the treasure, this Brahmin was guarding his earnings. So everybody hated him, especially his own family, because they knew very well he's got money, but he doesn't give us clothes, he doesn't even feed us properly. The Brahmin wouldn't even use the money for his own sense gratification. He was simply a miser. So, as a result of this, there are 5 demigods who preside over the 5 kinds of what are called pancha yajna. In the Vedic system, a householder kept himself and his family pure of sin, by always observing these 5 kinds of yajnas. They're just different household yajnas. For instance, before preparing food, grinding spices like that, he should do a yajna. Otherwise, living entities are being killed by the preparation of food. Even if one's a vegetarian, you see, by cooking, there are invisible microbes and bacteria and so on, which die by millions and billions. So unless one is performing these yajnas, then one gets sinful reaction. Of course, in Krishna consciousness, if one prepares prasadam by the offering to the Lord, all of that is taken care of. But in the old varnashram system, householders would accomplish that same end by pancha yajna. So this Brahmin, he was not doing any of that, just hoarding his money. So these 5 demigods, they became very angry at him. And so by their anger, they reduced him to a pauper. His family, somehow or other, they were able to squeeze some money out of him and take it. Thieves came and stole some of his money. And then he just lost his money due to different unfortunate circumstances, the passage of time. And somehow or other he had to give his money to other people, other men claimed some of his money. And then the government, probably like you have here in Sweden, you have to pay a hefty tax. So in Avanti, there was some taxmen also, and they came and took his money. So he was left with nothing. So then he considered, at this point he became a little thoughtful. He considered, look what I've done with my life. I hoarded this money. I was performing crazy austerities, just clinging to this money and not spending it for anything. And it's all been taken away from me anyway. Now I have nothing. So then he thought, I'll just renounce my life. Anyway, I can see my family hates me. Nobody here likes me. So I just give this up and become a sadhu. So then he accepted the life of a sadhu. It means a wandering mendicant. One goes to India, one sees many of them. They just travel around from holy place to holy place, beg like that, live very simply, and try to become purified. So this Avanti Brahman, he was doing like that. But as a result of his previous sins, all his previous bad behavior, the reactions were still coming upon him, even though he was now as a holy man. So he found it very difficult to beg anything from anyone. Nobody wanted to give him anything. They would just rebuke him, call him names. And the possessions that he did have, for instance, his begging bowl, or his staff, his bamboo staff, or even his cloth that he was wearing, or the deer skin that he sat on, people would come and steal these from him. And then they would taunt him with them. They would grab his staff or begging bowl and hold it. Ha 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 ha! I got your begging bowl. I got your staff. And then they would, he would, try to be very humble as he knew a sadhu should be and ignore them. And then they would come and say, all right, you're such a nice sadhu. Here, take it back. And then he would reach to take it and they'd go, ha! And again, pull it away. And when he would get some food, some little rice, and he would go someplace quiet to sit down and eat it, so he put it in front of him, and then he would say his prayers like a very pious sadhu. And then as he was with his eyes closed praying, he would hear some sound like falling water or something, and he would open his eyes and he'd see someone is passing urine on his food. You see? And then he would look at this person, what? And someone else would spit on his head. So he felt very distressed. He felt very, very distressed. And people were beating him. He would go around to visit temples and other holy places, and people would see him and beat him. You rascal! We know who you are! You're that miserly Brahmin! You're not a real sadhu! You just took up this life because anyway you had no money, and now you go around here, beg and bother us. And they would beat him, and they would tie him up, and yell at him, and pass air in his face, and do all kinds of things. So, then after so much torment, you see, he sat down one day and he thought, he was thinking, what is it with my life? All right, I was definitely a very ill-mannered character before, but now I'm trying my best to be a saintly person, and this is all I get. So then he was thinking about it, and then he came to a very remarkable conclusion. This is this verse we read, and also the verse before. I'd like to read the verse before, text 42. The Brahmana said, "These people are not the cause of my happiness and distress. Neither are the demigods, my own body, the planets, my past work, or time." By planets he means like astrological positions in the sky. Some people say that what you're getting in life, good or bad, it's due to that. So he was having this realization. It's not these people who are giving me so much trouble. It's not the demigods. It's not my body. It's not the planets. It's not my past karma or time. Rather, it is the mind alone that causes happiness and distress and perpetuates the rotation of material life. Then in the verse we read at the beginning of this class, he continues saying, the powerful mind, the word baliyan is used, means powerful. Manogunan vaishridite baliyas. So the powerful mind actuates the functions of the material modes. So the material modes, as you may know, goodness or sattva, passion, rajas, and tamas, ignorance. So Srila Prabhupada explained in a lecture that the soul is giving the consciousness. The soul is the source of consciousness. We're all experiencing this consciousness. And we identify this consciousness as our self. This is the basic sense of existence or being that we have. It's coming from the soul. But the consciousness, it shines through the mind. Just like you see here in the light fixtures, you see the glowing filament in the middle, and around it there is a bulb, glass, and the light from the filament comes through the glass. So this glass can be colored, just like there are three primary colors, yellow, red, and blue. So like that there are triguna, three modes of nature. So the color yellow can be compared to the material mode of goodness. In the material mode of goodness, one is fond of peace and quiet, and he's a thoughtful person, and he's philosophical and poetic, and like that, a kind of very well-mannered, high-class person. This is mode of goodness. And he'll be interested in self-realization. He may be a very religious person, like that. But it's only considered material. Why is that? Because there still is a slight tinge of the other lower modes in him. How does that come out? That he's proud. You see, he thinks that yes, I am a very good man. Yes, I am very elevated. And I see the world is filled with so many low-class people. You see, so many people who are beneath me, who are not up to my standard. So he looks down upon others. So that's material mode of goodness. The color yellow, it's light, it's kind of a bright color, but still it's a color. That means the clear light takes on that quality. It's not the same light as before. And then of course passion is represented by the color red. So in the mode of passion, one is very ambitious, one is very sensual, one wants to enjoy life, and he also works hard to get this enjoyment. He's after money, he's after position, he's after all the good advantages, whatever he can get, and he's very active. Just like you see, actually Srila Prabhupada said, the city, like a city like Stockholm, it is representative of the mode of passion, whereas the forest is representative of the mode of goodness. As you know, there are some people who they much rather live in the forest, in the wild, you see, than live in the city. When they come in the city, they feel very bad. All these cars racing around and loud noises and smelly air. You see, they can't wait to go back to the countryside. So the countryside, this is also in the ancient times where the sages used to repair for meditation, self-realization. And then there's the mode of ignorance, represented by the color blue. There's a certain kind of music called the blues. So the blues and the color blue, yes, it is very, very appropriate mode of ignorance. In the blues, this music, this is expressing unhappiness, you see. One is very unhappy, very frustrated. So a person in the mode of goodness, generally it means previously he was in the mode of passion. He was trying to attain material success, but he failed. So then he just gives up. And he drifts down, perhaps into drinking or drugs. He's just lazy, he sleeps a lot, he mopes around, he's morose, unhappy. He can't keep anything together, you see. He can't keep a roof over his head, he can't keep relationships with people. He's just very, very foolish, very mad, very undisciplined. So then these three states, they're generated out of the mind. And then we suffer or enjoy according to these modes. And these modes also mix. And they create, you see, combinations of states. A person may have in his character, he may have some goodness, some passion, some ignorance. Most people are like that. Most people, in the course of a day, by the changes of their mind, they go through these three modes. So, actually out of these modes, all the different states in this universe, that the living entities and the different species, they're all generated. So in the heavenly planets, the Svarga Loka, that's in the mode of goodness, more in the mode of goodness. So they're having a very nice life there, long, long life. This earthly planet is mainly in the mode of passion, and there are hellish planets. Or we can see the animal species. In the animal species on this planet, they're suffering. They have no higher intelligence to know how to advance out of their very unfortunate condition, you see. Pigs eating stool, you see. So that's nasty life. But they're completely conditioned to it. They have no choice in the matter. Completely under the mode of ignorance. So anyway, all these states are generated out of the mind. In this human form of life, we have our mind, it is running on, uncontrolled, and we're acting in the different modes, and we're creating karma in the different modes. And then at the end of this life, the soul will have to enter, according to the karma, these different states. You see, if someone has lived in the mode of goodness, then he can take birth in the next life in that mood. Or in the mode of ignorance, he goes down. So, this Avanti Brahman, he had the realization that all of this that I'm experiencing now, this suffering, it is simply a creation of my own mind. Not that it's not happening, it doesn't mean that it's a dream. You see, it's not to be understood in that way, that it just was his imagination. No, but the fact that he's identifying with it. Because after all, what is really happening? It's just the body that is going through these experiences. As much as one sits in a theater, cinema house, and sees something on the screen. You see a hero or heroine, and they're having adventures, and you get engrossed in the film, and you start to identify. You see in the audience, the men will generally identify with the hero, and the ladies will identify with the heroine. And of course, there's always a few freaks who identify with the bad guy. Go, get him. They're always in the minority. Anyway, they identify with somebody up there on the screen, and they get all absorbed in what they're doing. And when it shows that the hero gets hit in the face, then everyone goes, oh! You see, and then when the hero's beating the bad guy, yeah, get him, get him, get him! And then when there's a love scene, everyone goes, oh! You see? So everyone's caught up in it, identifying with it, feeling the emotions that are being played on the screen, actually having the experience. But yet it is all unreal. It's actually all a product of the mind. Because if one uses the intelligence and just thinks about, what am I seeing here? This is just a big screen at the end of this building I'm sitting in. And there's some light flickering on it, and different shapes and forms passing across the surface of the screen. And these speakers over here make some sound. But you see, because of my mind, I'm totally absorbed in it, accepting it as real, actually thinking that that person is me. So like that, by the mind, we identify this with this body. And this body is just being moved around by the modes of nature, according to the karma, experiencing something good, experiencing something bad, so-called. It's all unreal. And yet by identification through the mind, we are, you see, accepting this as our life, as us. But just like in the movie theater, if the light suddenly goes on, then you can't see the screen anymore. You just look around, you see all kinds of people sitting, eating their popcorn. They're also looking around, what's happening? You see, why no more movie? Everyone's becoming disturbed. So then immediately, the whole thing is just a show. Just a movie. It immediately breaks your connection. So like that, if the light of transcendental realization comes on in our life, if we understand, I'm not this body, and we understand this material world is just a temporary phantasmagoria, and then we're no longer attached. We're no longer attached to it. So this was the realization of this Brahmana. And then a little bit later, he comes to a very important conclusion. This is a very famous verse, text 57. Etam sa ashtaya paratmanishtam adyasitam purvattamaya maharshivi aham tarashyami durantaparam tamo mukundangri nishelayaiva, which means, I shall cross over the insurmountable ocean of nescience by being firmly fixed in the service of the lotus feet of Krishna. This was approved by the previous acharyas, who were fixed in firm devotion to the Lord, Paramatma, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. With this verse, this Brahman from Avanti is explaining, he's actually expressing the way out of this dilemma of the conditioning of the mind. That one has to take shelter of the previous acharyas, in other words, the parampara, Guru Parampara system. As Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, he's giving all this knowledge to Arjuna, but he tells Arjuna, Evam Parampara Praptam Imam Raja Sayo Vidhu. which means that this knowledge that I am explaining, it is to be received only in disciplic succession, only from Krishna's devotees, Krishna's pure devotees, who are connected with Krishna by this parampara system. Krishna spoke this knowledge. It was heard by Brahma. Brahma gave this knowledge to Narada. Narada gave this knowledge to Vyasa. Vyasa gave this knowledge to Sri Madhvacharya, and so on and so forth. This is the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, the line of disciplic succession of pure devotees. So this is the way in which one receives this transcendental knowledge. So by immersing oneself in this transcendental knowledge coming down the parampara system, then one can overcome the pushings of the mind. The mind is compared, one time Srila Prabhupada compared the mind to a river. So if you enter a river and you want to try to stop the flow of the current, how you'll do it, you see? You swim out in the middle of the river and you hold out your arms, you see, and try to stop the river. The river will just sweep you away. You cannot stop the current of the river. But the river flows to the ocean. So in the ocean there are waves coming and they're crashing. And so if one goes into those waves, into that current of the ocean, which is crashing onto the land, then one is no longer pushed by the river. As a matter of fact, the ocean much, much stronger than the river. So in this way, one can resist the flow of the river by entering the ocean. So similarly, Krishna consciousness is like that ocean. The mind is like a river, but Krishna consciousness is like the ocean. So in this ocean of Krishna consciousness, then plans, just like the acharyas, the great devotees in the parampara system, they're giving plans how to serve Krishna, authorized plans, like the Sankirtan movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this movement of spreading Krishna consciousness around the world by the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, and distributing Srila Prabhupada's books. So this is a great plan, and it is forged by the acharyas. So if we immerse our minds, if we immerse ourselves in this plan, then the mind becomes automatically controlled. But if you try to invent your own plan, you see, you think, well, Krishna consciousness is very nice. I want to serve Krishna, but I think I can come up with a good plan myself. Then that's like going into the river and holding out your arms and trying to stop the flow of the river. It won't work. So, the Avanti Brahman, he had this very nice realization that although I've tried to be a sadhu, I'm just in trouble. So let me follow the path of the acharyas. Let me completely surrender to the Lord. And immediately he became blissful. And immediately he became determined to perfect his life. So now someone may say, well, this sounds like just taking shelter of some orthodox system, some rigid school of thought, which is not very creative. How can one become connected with Krishna by that? No, it's not a question of some doctrine or some orthodoxy or anything like that, some closed system of thought. Actually, the connection with Krishna to the parampara is a connection of love. Krishna says, you see, he explained to one big yogi, Durvasa Muni. Durvasa Muni had made an offense against a great devotee named Ambarish Maharaj. So, because of this offense, then another great devotee of the Lord, Sudarshan, the Sudarshan Chakra, Lord Vishnu has this weapon, this round wheel of light which destroys the demons. It's a wheel of pure energy. If you've seen a picture of Lord Vishnu, or here you see, there's a picture of Lord Vishnu. So in the, you can see on the arm on the left side, our left side, held up, there's the wheel. So, discus, Sudarshan. So Sudarshan, he came and pursued this yogi, Durvas, chased him all over the universe. And he went to Lord Brahma and he went to Lord Shiva, help me, help me. And they said, who's behind you? Who's chasing you? It's Sudarshan Chakra. Sorry. Goodbye. Can't help you. And finally he went to Lord Narayan, Lord Vishnu himself, because he was thinking, well, this is Vishnu's own weapon, so he can call it off. And he went to and fell down at Lord Vishnu's lotus feet and said, please save me from your Sudarshan, I surrender to you. And Lord Vishnu also said, I can't really help you, because you've offended my devotee. And then he said, Aham Bhakta Paradino. He told the yogi, I have no independence from my devotee. Aham Bhakta Paradino. This word Paradino means, it means the relationship of a pet to a master. Now you may think, oh, he's saying that the devotee is like the pet of the master. He's the master. The Lord is... No, he meant it exactly the other way. He said, I'm the pet of my devotee. You see? I'm under his control. So you've offended this great devotee, this pure devotee of mine. What can I do? You see? You have to get his forgiveness. Then automatically Sudarshan will not bother you. But if you come to me, there's nothing I can do. So Aham Bhakta Paradina Hiyashva Tanta Eva Dvija Sadhve Grasta Hridya Bhakto. He said, this relationship is like that. I'm under the control of my devotees. Why? Because their hearts are so pure. Their hearts are so pure that I must enter their hearts, and I stay there. And whatever they want from me, I give them. I'm so attracted to their hearts, because they're completely pure. And then he concludes, he gives a hint to the yogi, how to get out of his dilemma. He says, Bhakta Jana Priya. Anyone who becomes Priya, Priya means dear. Anyone who becomes dear to my devotee automatically becomes dear to me. So he's telling him, you just become dear to my devotee, Ambarish, and you'll have no problem. So this is also the secret of the Parampara system. It is a line of pure devotees with pure hearts, and Krishna sits in their heart. And anyone who becomes dear to one of these devotees in the Parampara line, he automatically becomes dear to Krishna. But if you try on your own, well, I don't need to go to the Parampara. You see, I can do it on my own. Then how you will become dear to... What is the condition of your heart? This is the question to ask. What is the condition of our heart? Is our heart pure? You think you can make your heart pure by just saying, yes, now I'm a devotee. Just by lip service? No. Sorry. You see, we are under very, very heavy conditioning. This is actually, in this sense, there is some similarity with that Christian doctrine. The Christians say, no man can come before God because he's so sinful. The Christians create this big, gap between man and God. But there's some good reason for that. Some good reason for thinking that way. Although it's a fact that in essence, we're all spirit soul. And Krishna says, Mama Aivamsa Jiva Loki. The jiva, the soul, is my spiritual energy, my own part and parcel. But what has become of this poor soul? This poor soul has become attracted to dwell in this material body, which is a lump of total ignorance. This material body is just a stool sack. It's just a bag filled with all kinds of nasty things. If you like. But I think everybody knows. This body, of course, in this material world, everyone's mad after the body, everyone wants to dress it up and decorate it and put perfume on it and go to the hair salon and get the hair teased up and cut in different ways and dyed different colors, red and blue and green. Look like a peacock sits on your head. But ultimately, this body is just a bag of very nasty products, which, if they were removed from the body, would immediately disgust us. You see, we immediately become disgusted. You see, it's like people say, oh, this girl has a very nice smile. So remove the smile, take it off the face, you know, the teeth and the lips. Here it is, here's the smile. You want it? How horrible. So that's what the body really is. And this soul, of course, the soul, as we said, is originally, he's pure, but he's identified with his body. He's entered this body, and he's accepting the body as a self. So that's like fly consciousness. It's like the flies, you know, they buzz through the air on their way somewhere, and then they smell something, oh, very nice smell. Oh, let's go. And, you know, land on some dog stool. See? And there they have a little party. Oh, play the music, you know. Come on, everybody. All the flies come like a little airport. Convention of flies on the dog stool. So this is very low and nasty. So we have become conditioned like that. And how you will break this conditioning? It is simply not by lip service. You see? This body that we have, it is simply a product of all our sinful material desires. It is very lusty, very prone to nasty activities. So we are very, very profoundly conditioned by this. And simply by, you know, say so. Now I want to surrender to Krishna. Now I will be a devotee and I will invent my own plan. No. It's something like, if you can imagine, somebody who was formerly engaged in very scandalous activities. For instance, there's this big industry. Of course, in the Hare Krishna movement, we don't like to think about these things or talk about them too much. But it is a fact that there's a tremendous industry in this world, which is, you know, this pornographic movie industry, these so-called blue movies. And they have theaters all over the world. It's a huge industry, making billions and billions of dollars for some real creepy people, and who are behind, you know, they're usually mafia guys who are making these movies. They're really cleaning up. So, and they get young men and young women, and they are having sex in front of the camera, and it's, you know, a big thing. So, sometimes one hears that someone who is starring in these movies, they have, you know, some change of, they say, I don't want to do this anymore. So they try to change their occupation. So you can imagine, just imagine if some girl who's starred in about 100 or 200 of these movies, she decides, I want to become a kindergarten teacher. So she goes to kindergarten and walks in and sits down and says, I'd like to become a teacher here. What is your name? My name is Cherry Cupcake. That's a funny name. What did you used to do before coming here and inquiring? Where did you work before? Well, I'm an actress. An actress. And what kind of movie did you make? And then she might mention a few films, you see. Well, I starred in Sexy Parachutes and, you see, Lusty Surfboards and... Get out! She won't have much of a chance to become a kindergarten teacher. So like that, we have starred in our own movies too in past lifetimes and in this lifetime too. So many movies, millions and millions and trillions. You see, also in different bodily forms also. You see fish movies and dog movies. And so all of that conditioning is there. Just by lip service, if we decide, now I'm going to become a saint, now I'm going to become a holy person. It won't work. So we have to follow the method. And the method is surrender to Guru Parampara. And if we don't follow the proper method, then it won't work. Just like Srila Prabhupada told a story explaining this point of the method. He told a story of there was a yogi who would spend his nights in the cold season in the middle of a tank of water, a lake of water. In India they have these they're called tanks. It actually means something like a pond of water, which is walled all around, and people bathe there. There's steps going down. So he would spend the nights, which were cold, this was in the cold season, up to his neck in this water. And he became very well known for this. So he issued a challenge that I will stand overnight in water, and anyone who wants to try and disprove that I'm actually doing this, that I'm actually enduring all this cold, if they can prove somehow that I'm cheating, then I will pay them such and such. No, actually he didn't say that. He just said, if it yes, if it can be established that I'm actually doing this without cheating, then this person should pay me such and such amount of money. He issued a challenge like that. Because there was some talk that, this yogi is just a cheater. So he said like that. So then this one businessman, rich businessman, he took up the challenge. He said, all right. He said, you do that, and I'll inspect, and if it can be proven that you're not actually cheating somehow, then I'll give you 10,000 rupees. So then the night came, the yogi went in up to his neck, and the man he had his men watching, examining what's going on. And then the morning came, the businessman came down to look, the yogi was there, and he asked his men, so did the yogi stay in the water up to his neck the whole night? Yes, he didn't move. And so the man became very doubtful, and he thought, well, I guess that I'll have to pay him the money. But then one of his servants, one of the men, was very clever. And he said, no, he said, don't pay him anything. Because you see that light? He pointed to some light far away. There was, on the top of the temple, there was some fire. Sometimes in temples, as a light, they keep a fire burning on the top with flames of ghee. So you see that over there, that flame burning? So that yogi, by his mystic power, he's just taking the heat from that flame and keeping himself warm. So this is cheating. He's not actually enduring the cold water. So don't pay him. So then the businessman said, all right, yes, I don't pay you anything. Now I know your trick. So then he went home. So then his cook, it was time for the cook to prepare food. So the cook said, yes, I'm going to do it very quickly today because I've invented a new method to cook your dinner. So the man, oh, very nice. So he was waiting, and still it didn't come. So then he was inquiring, sending one servant, what is happening? The servant come back. Well, the cook says it's almost ready. He's using this new system. So it will be a very, very interesting, well-cooked feast. So then again, after some time, still nothing coming, sending the servant again the same report. So after a little while, he became very impatient. My dinner is late, what's happening? So he went into the kitchen himself. And he saw that the cook had a very small flame on the floor. And then held from the top of the ceiling, there was a pot. You see? And there was, some meters of distance between the little candle flame and this pot. And the cook was just sitting there and looking at the pot. And then the businessman, he said, what the hell are you doing? And the cook said, well, I've learned something from that yogi. That, you see, I have this candle flame. And so by meditation, I'm bringing the heat up to the pot. And I'm going to cook your dinner in that way. So then the man, he was very angry. But then he began to understand, yes, actually, this whole idea is ridiculous. This is a ridiculous idea. How could it be that the yogi, he has brought heat to him in this way? So then he went back and he paid the yogi. How could you have cheated in this way? This is a crazy idea. So Prabhupada told this story to illustrate that one has to follow the method. You see, if you're going to cook, as Sunanda knows very well, if you're going to cook something, then you have to follow the proper method. Don't concoct some new way. I'd like to stop here. Thank you very much for being an attentive audience. As I think most of you know, next will come Prasad. But if you have if there's any question at this time, I can try to answer it.
Yeah. Is there any method of checking out really on the Greek spot? Is it Paramatma talking to you, or is it just a mind thingy? I mean, how can we quickly clear out this?
You mean if you have some idea from within? Yes, so one has to confirm that externally. It may be Paramatma, but it may also be the mind. So therefore we have Guru, Shastra, Sadhu as a check. Guru, spiritual master, Shastra, the scripture, and Sadhu, other holy men. So if we have some idea or inspiration that comes from within, one can consult. And if it matches up, if Guru, Shastra, Sadhu agree, yes, this is a proper inspiration, then you can accept it.
May I ask a question? You said this three modes, is it independent of myself? Is it automatically working that I am depressed or I am happy? Or you may say it is the karma, but it is also imposed because I am not a free person. The mind is not free. Can the soul control the mind? Or how is it happening actually?
Yeah.
How can I have self-control when I am afraid or depressed?
Well, all of this, you see, the three gunas, the three modes, this is Krishna's energy. Krishna explained this to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, that these three modes, this Triguna Maya, Mama Maya, he says, Mama Maya Durattiya, that this is my Maya, this is my energy, and it is Durattiya, it is very, very difficult for an ordinary person to overcome. He's under the control of this influence. The karma, the modes, the senses. This is actually not ours to control. It's Krishna's energy. So, but then Krishna says, Mama eva ye prapadyante mayamitam tarantite, that one who surrenders to me, then he can cross over this influence.
So Purushakara has no significance. Purushakara means, Purushakara means that means there is a theory in Vasishtha drama that says that this fate, this functioning of the guna, the condition can be overcome by your own self-will.
Well, that depends on how you define Purusha. You see, Purusha can have two meanings. Purusha can mean the individual jiva, the soul, your individual spiritual existence, but also can refer to Purushottam, Vishnu, Paramatma. So in Vedanta, Vaishnava Vedanta, we understand that the idea of Atman, the self, it is only completely understood. Anor Aniyam Mahato Mahiyam Atmasya Jantor Nihito Guhayam. So in the heart, there is both dwelling. That is the Atman. There is the Anu Atma, which is us as individuals, and there is the Maha Atma, the Paramatma, who is within everyone's heart. So self-realization, to realize the self, means to realize both. This is in the Upanishads also. Samani Vrikshe Purusho Namagno. It's explained that on this tree of the body, there are two birds. One is the individual and one is the Paramatma. So when the individual bird who is tasting the fruits and feeling happiness and distress, when he turns, simply stops that and turns and contemplates the Paramatma, the other bird, then he becomes free from happiness, from the duality of happiness and distress. So, in a sense, we can agree on that point you made if the Atman is understood in that way, Atma and Paramatma together. But if you want to divide Atma, the Jiva, from Paramatma, and say, no, the Jiva can do it on his own without help from God, then we cannot agree with that. Anything else? So we can stop here. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.